Hey everyone, Tim Schofield here. It's time to review the first iPad I've ever used. This is the 2020 12.9-inch iPad Pro, and I bought it trying to replace my MacBook Pro for video editing and just everyday use. After using it, there is a lot that I like about this iPad. However, there are some things that I dislike, especially when it comes to trying to replace full-on desktop with Mac OS on it as well. So let's go ahead and get into the full review of the iPad Pro 2020. To begin, when it comes to the design of the iPad, I'm actually a big fan. It's very premium, as you would expect from Apple. It is fairly thin, considering, again, this is the 12.9-inch iPad. The bezels are also a very solid size in terms of being able to hold onto it without accidentally touching the display. Although I will say the display does collect fingerprints fairly easy, so I do find myself having to clean off the display fairly often when I am using the touchscreen. The speakers have been very good quality, and considering the size, it does get fairly loud, not as loud as other laptops out there. The microphones on the iPad are fantastic, though. I even get comments from people that I FaceTime with saying, wow, the microphone sounds really good. A small camera bump housing the standard and ultra-wide angle lenses. You do have a power button and 2 volume rockers. Up at the top is the support for your Apple Pencil, which I did go out and buy. And then you also have your one USB Type-C slot, and this is kind of a deal breaker for me, only having one USB-C slot when you're trying to replace a laptop, having to go out buy extra dongles for extra support if you want to connect something. Not only are you limited to the one USB-C slot, it also doesn't have Thunderbolt support. So you'll see I will connect my SSD, which is a Samsung Portable X5 SSD. I've been using that for a while now. It's awesome. But you cannot use Thunderbolt accessory. It just isn't compatible at all. Even if I go to my files, it'll not show up on the left side. So I can't even use this external hard drive, which I've been using for a long period of time on different laptops. So since it's only one slot, back to that dongle life, I've been carrying these around, just standard ones for USB-A. This is a big one for me because I am editing videos on the iPad as well. So this is USB-C to our SD card. There is Bluetooth, so if you have wireless accessories such as a mouse or a keyboard, that works just fine. So you'll see here, I'm actually using a mouse because it does have trackpad or mouse support on iPad OS, which is nice. Using a mouse isn't as precise as I really want it to be. I think a trackpad will be much better, so I am hoping to get that Magic Keyboard soon. I've also already pre-ordered the new Magic Keyboard that Apple's coming out with, so I will be doing video coverage on that, so make sure you are subscribed. But in the meantime, with this iPad and with it being so big, you pretty much have to have a case on it, specifically a case that has a stand, and I have 2 solutions for that. This brings us to our sponsor, and I can wholeheartedly recommend both of these cases. They are from ESR. Both of these cases I'm gonna show off work on the 12.9 and 11-inch models. I will link to everything down below, and there's a coupon code TIM202020 for 20% off. I will link to everything down in the description. The first one is the ESR Yippee Trifold Smart Case. So when you do open up the case, it will wake up your iPad and it will put it to sleep when you close it. There's also a couple different stand modes. You have a 65-degree viewing mode and a 30-degree typing mode. It does have magnets to keep everything secure and full Apple Pencil support, which is nice because you can just have your Apple Pencil on your iPad and there's a clasp to keep it secure. The next one's the ESR Sentry stand case, and this is the one I've been using more just because there's a little bit more functionality to it and it's a little more rugged, so it will protect the iPad just a little bit more. There's a ton of angles for this case to sit at, and it uses magnets, so when I do pick up the iPad when it's already at an angle, it will stay at that angle. It's not loose at all. It's a very strong magnet. And speaking of that strong magnet, I've actually used it to hang it on the refrigerator. That's how strong it is. It just holds up the case and the iPad. And of course, there's a little notch where you can hang it on something as well. It does have Apple Pencil support to connect it to your iPad, or you can actually store it away in the case itself, which is great when you aren't traveling. So again, thanks to ESR for sponsoring this video. Use code TIM202020 for 20% off. Link in the description. When it comes to the display, I'm extremely happy. The colors look great. Viewing angles are good. It isn't an OLED display. That would be the cherry on top with iPads, but it does have a 120 hertz refresh rate. When you do couple that with Apple's animations, it makes the overall experience so smooth. It's actually pretty amazing. So for example, if we are watching, a 4K video here, I generally do like to use desktop websites because, of course, I'm trying to replace my laptop. I'm not going to be in a YouTube app. I'm not going to be in a Twitter app. All of those feeds that I use when I'm on my laptop come from the desktop experience. So I have been trying to use the browser a lot more. Unfortunately, you're pretty much forced to use Safari, so browser extensions, etc., just are pretty non-existent. It's not so great. And then, for example, there's things I want to do while watching a video. Sometimes I like to leave the video and have it run while I'm on a desktop. I'm going to go back into Safari. It just pauses it. It doesn't keep going like it would on a desktop OS. And the reason you have to use Safari, I'm a big Chrome user, and it doesn't have a native desktop Chrome browser, but it automatically goes to your mobile websites. No matter what site you go to, it goes to the mobile version. You have to go through and automatically request a desktop website every time, which is pretty unacceptable to me. So for me, I'm always having to go to Safari. So I've just started using Safari, which has been okay. It's not the best browser out there, but it's also just missing features that are included when you do use a laptop like macOS or Windows. I also turned to the iPad Pro to replace my MacBook Pro for video editing. Now, I generally use Final Cut. I've been using Final Cut for years, but I did get the LumaFusion app on iPad, which thank you guys, you recommended to me. And there is a bit of a learning curve, you know, it took some time to figure out how to do certain things with Luma keyers and different things, but I actually did get a solid handle on LumaFusion, and there's a good amount of features to it. I actually really do like the LumaFusion app. And this is my Q&A video, which did take a bit of time to edit because I was adding in different images and trying to figure out different things. But overall, it was smooth. I am a fan of using it. I didn't really get any stuttering or lag. Just a couple different things I want to mention. File management on iPad OS is just okay. It's kind of all over the place. You do have a Files app here, so there's just different things that you can do with it. If I go to my downloads here, I have a bunch of different files that I've downloaded, but they're all over the place within Photos or within your actually your file browser on your iPad. It's just kind of wonky how they have it working, especially within LumaFusion, that you have to really go back and find different file locations, and you can't just, and you'd have to really transfer it to get it to all in one place. And to transfer everything just takes time, and it's not as smooth as desktop experiences. Aside from that, one other gripe I do have with using LumaFusion over Final Cut Pro, like I said, I actually think I could get used to it. I could generally edit a lot of my video content using this. Might take a little bit more time, but one problem I do have is, I'll show you actually, I'll go into, let's see, into my files on my iPad. Let's go into downloads here. Not downloads, let's go back to on my iPad, go into videos. And here's an example. Now, the right video is a 10-minute video, and the middle video is a 10-minute video. The right one is edited on Final Cut Pro. The middle one is edited in LumaFusion. The file size output after editing is just a pretty large difference. It's crazy how much Final Cut can compress those video files. So you'll see 2.21 gigs versus 5.58. Similar length, a little bit different of a video style, but still, just as an example, there's a big difference in that file size, which is kind of a deal breaker, taking up that much more space. And of course, it's gonna take a little bit longer to export because you don't have as much power as you would on a MacBook Pro. Depending on the app developer, sometimes support for the iPad app is very limited. For example, let's go ahead and go to Instagram. Check this out. So it just kind of blows up this mobile version of Instagram. And this is what it looks like. Fairly comical that Instagram hasn't made an iPad app. It's almost embarrassing, specifically because if you go to Instagram.com on your desktop, you can't upload images. So if I want to upload any images from my iPad, I do it through this goofy, tiny app. It's kind of embarrassing, and it forces you to use portrait mode. And when it does come to gaming, it's kind of up to you to decide if you want App Store games to play or if you want to be on a laptop like Windows, where you could potentially play higher end games if you have a GPU that supports them. Now, for example, you can play Fortnite in 120 FPS, which is kind of nice out of the App Store, and that is the full Fortnite game if you're a touchscreen gamer, or you can sync up a Bluetooth controller and play with a controller. And yes, there are AR games that you can play. I didn't find any AR games that really pulled me in. However, there are some cool AR apps, including the IKEA one, to kind of see what something will look like in your place. You can measure different things. So there are some uses to augmented reality on your iPad, but it doesn't really take full advantage of that LiDAR technology. With such a larger tablet, I do like to use it horizontally most of the time, similar to I would with a laptop display. However, the design language is definitely geared towards using it like a tablet in portrait mode because the camera is up towards the top. When you have it like this and you're holding it, you're gonna block the camera on the left side. I almost wish the larger model would have the camera in the middle in landscape as opposed to, you know, over here on the left side, because when I video chat and such, I'm like this most of the time, especially lately. I've been doing so much video chatting on this iPad, and I really wish the camera was up here because when I am in these apps, I'm not using it portrait, I'm using it landscape, specifically if I want to multitask and do multi-window. Just to show you, with my left thumb right here, it does start to block that camera. Even when I unlock it, and I lock and unlock it, and I have my thumb here, I'm holding it, sometimes it won't unlock because obviously you shouldn't be covering the camera. So again, I guess depending on your uses, I found I was using it horizontally more, where the camera just started to be covered. Now, aside from the placement of that camera, the front-facing camera quality is fairly good. It's better than my MacBook Pro, so I have been happy with that. And like I said, the microphones are excellent. I'm not sure how many selfies you're going to be taking, but there is portrait mode to the front-facing camera, so you can take selfies with portrait mode. But if you do actually want to take portrait mode shots with the rear cameras, unfortunately you can't. It just auto switches to the front camera. So I don't know if that's a deal breaker for you, but that's kind of annoying that they didn't include portrait mode in the rear cameras. I'm not a big iPad photo taker. However, if you do want to take some photos, you do have your 1X, and they added an ultra wide angle lens, which is pretty nice that they added that as a feature of functionality. You can zoom in up to 5X too, but that is of course just digital zoom from the 1X. Like I mentioned, I did buy the Apple Pencil 2. I've been a fan of it. Overall, it is fairly premium. It's comfortable to hold over time. I'm not a big artist in general. Yeah, I went through some coloring apps and colored in, and it was okay. You know, like it's very useful. It feels very real, but the biggest use I got out of it was writing notes, especially when I'm on video calls. I actually just prefer writing notes. My handwriting is terrible, don't get me wrong, but I do prefer writing notes. I feel like I retain the information better when I'm writing as opposed to typing, so it has been excellent. However, you know, I don't really need this full functionality because I'm not that much of an artist on that artist side. I also will use it as a stylus overall, just, you know, browsing through my iPad, using different things. I wish you could go up and home. I know it's to kind of cancel out if you're drawing and you're accidentally going home. I still kind of wish I could because I use it as more of a stylus sometimes instead of drawing. With iPad OS, it does have split screen and multitasking capabilities. So when you do actually swipe up and pause, there's multiple apps here as opposed to maybe just a couple that you can choose from. So it's nice that they've added more. However, there's also another feature. So from the dock, you can press and hold and drag an app, and you can swipe it over for split screen view. You can, you know, customize where you want the app size to be. However, there's another option. So let's close out of that, go back to Safari, and then if we're in Safari and we want to go ahead and just throw the Files app up, it opens up in a smaller version of that app, just a little more slimmed down, which is nice to have. It is compatible only in some of the apps. So as you can see, the Files app is compatible. And then you can swipe it over to the side here. So let's say you're going through, doing different things, doing some shopping, and you still know you have that app open on the right side there. You can swipe it over. You see, I just flew it all the way over. But of course, you can pop it out. You can put it back into split screen mode. You have multiple options for multitasking. Not quite as good as other desktop options, but it is there. As I wait for the Magic Keyboard, I've been using a Bluetooth mouse, a Bluetooth keyboard to actually type on this, so that has been fine overall. One thing that I actually have a complaint about is when I am connected to a Bluetooth keyboard and I swipe down, you have no option to actually load up a touchscreen keyboard. It's kind of annoying if I want to type something real quick, or maybe I brought my iPad away from where that keyboard is. Because it is a tablet, I still want to carry it with me places, and even if it is still stays connected to that Bluetooth keyboard somewhere. So the point I'm trying to get to is, no, this is not going to be able to replace my MacBook Pro overall. It might if I'm not doing things such as video editing, but even with the lack of a full desktop web browsing experience, it's just still constrained to a tablet. It's a little annoying, but with all of that being said, this is an amazing tablet. So for me, this size is too big. I actually wish I would have went with the 11-inch size for the tablet as opposed to the 12.9 to try and replace a desktop. Hands down, this is the best tablet on the market right now. So if I'm going to use it as a tablet, I think 12.9 inches is a little bit too large, but I have really enjoyed using it as a tablet. Once I got over the hump of I'm gotta stop trying to replace my keyboard or my laptop, this just is not a replacement for it in my opinion. It still is great for video editing. That LumaFusion app is excellent. Like I said, you still have to get over some file management hurdles, but even if you're doing video editing and you need something to edit it, this is still a good option. So with that being said, I would recommend going with the smaller version of this iPad, or potentially look at getting the 2018 model, especially if they are lowering the prices on them. Just because if you're not replacing your laptop, you might not need that extra power boost. And again, you might not need that extra size because you're probably gonna wanna carry it around, use it as a tablet, use it vertically so you can take advantage of that top camera, and even just the overall design sense is just kind of made for it to be used vertically. And with all of that being said, I hope you enjoyed my review video. More to come. Like I said, that Magic Keyboard's coming in. I'm still gonna be using this iPad. Don't worry, I'm not giving it up. I still really like using it as a tablet in general. Again, hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to give it a thumbs up. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching.